Guys, my MR2 has a serious issue. None of these pedals work properly. That one sticks, that one doesn't stop the car, and that one doesn't engage the clutch properly. With all these not working, it's basically not a car. So I'm gonna go ahead and fix these issues, starting with the brakes. Now let me show you what's going on. This is the brake pedal right here, right? That pretty much goes all the way to the ground, which makes sense because this reservoir is completely empty. It's weird because in the post when I bought it, it said something along the lines of brake drums got stuck, had to drain brake fluid. But this car has rear disc brakes. But also the dad said that he put new brake parts and he says it needs a new master cylinder. But as many of you guys know, should never trust the seller and what they say. So we're gonna find out what's going on. So right now I have the car on jack stands, and so far, each wheel seems to be spinning freely. Well, this one drags a bit, but we'll get to that. Now, since this master cylinder is empty, I'm gonna have to bench bleed this. From there, I'll reconnect these lines and start bleeding each brake. And since inside this reservoir is pretty dirty and around it, I'm gonna clean the inside and out. Okay, so I lost my other fittings, but luckily the store had another one of these, and this gives me an opportunity to show you guys what exactly I'm using. This is the master cylinder bleeder kit, and basically these fittings could fit different styles of master cylinders. And basically how this works is that you would put these fittings here, have the tube attached to it, goes back into the reservoir, and you basically pump the brakes and that'll bench bleed the master cylinder. So as you can see, all the bubbles cleared out and everything seems to be working properly as far as the master cylinder. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove my bleeder tubes and then install my brake lines and start bleeding each wheel. So upon visual inspection, I noticed that the driver's side caliper on the front is leaking, and it looks like it could be leaking from either the banjo bolt or the bleeder on top. From the looks of it, it looks like it's the bleeder from the top because it starts up here and it drips all the way down. Probably not likely the banjo bolt, but it is a possibility. I'm gonna start by replacing this bleed screw, and then we're gonna go through the sequence of bleeding the brakes starting from the rear passenger side. I just finished doing all the wheels, and so far everything looks pretty good. The only thing I do have a concern for is the seals for the reservoir, and if those leak, then that's gonna be an issue. I have to get new seals. I think they have parts for those online, but I'm gonna let this sit overnight before I drive it just to see if those seals end up failing or they start leaking. So be right back. All right, it's the next day, and so far I don't see any leaks coming out of this master cylinder, so that's a good thing. And I checked out the floor and it seems like nothing is leaking, and this brake pedal feels nice and firm. So I find that interesting. So it seems like the system is working properly and nothing needed to be replaced except for that bleeder screw. I guess once I start driving this thing, I'll actually know what's going on, but for now, let's move on to the next issue. So the gas pedal sometimes sticks and comes back up slowly, and with the engine on, it's kind of scary because it hangs the RPM for quite a while. So here's how this works. So here's our throttle body right here, and we have a pulley and a cable, and this cable runs all the way to this other set of pulleys right over here. And from this pulley, there's another cable that goes out this way, down into the gas pedal. But check this out. So there is another cable, and I believe this is for the cruise control, and this thing is literally just hanging there. That is pretty dangerous. That could have got stuck on me while I was driving. And also, this thing looks really dirty and crusty. So I'm gonna start by removing these cables and this whole bracket assembly. We're gonna take this whole thing out. All right, so here's what I got. There are 3 bolts holding this thing in. So there's one that's right here on this bracket, which attaches to the shock tower. There's one on the top here, which attaches to right there in the body of the car. And then there's one that's under it, which attaches to also the body of the car right over there. And this cable is clipped onto this part from here. And now this part is basically free for me to work on. Now this cable, I'm gonna take this off. Oh, and also there's this piece of plastic here. I'm not sure what this goes to, but that's wedged in there, and that could have caused some serious issues of my throttle getting stuck. But anyways, that is pretty slow. I want to have a deeper look at this, so I'm going to be removing both these cables. And to do that, I'm going to be pulling this pulley here and then wiggling this cable out. And the same thing for that cable over there. All right, here's a better look at this thing. This thing is really freaking dirty, and the spring inside of there is super crusty. So I'm gonna take a few pictures of this so that way I know how this thing goes together. Start taking this thing apart, start cleaning each part. Now let's jump to the time lapse. So this part came out very well. Look how clean it is, and it's all lubricated and everything functions very well. You see, it turns very easy. It snaps back like it should. So now I'm gonna go ahead and use this stuff for the cables. Got this from AutoZone. This is chain and cable lubricant. I'm gonna try to tape that end to this cable. I don't have the tool that mounts here and basically feeds the lubricant through the cable. So I'm gonna tape it to this end and hope it goes all the way through. All right, let's see if this works. Okay, it somewhat worked. I had to put this towel right here and pinch it, and it shot some of the lubricant out of the other side. And now this cable is fully lubricated. I've pulled the cable a couple of times, and that feels very snappy. Now I'm gonna attempt to do the same thing to the pedal cable. So I finally got both cables lubricated. So now I'm gonna go ahead and start reassembling everything. Okay, so now it's officially installed, and I went ahead and tested the gas pedal, and it feels so much better. That's a lot better than it used to. Before, it would kind of get stuck, but now it's working pretty good. At this angle, you can see that throttle cable does not get snagged and it retracts quickly. Now that I got that out of the way, the last thing to do is the clutch. And the same story as the brakes. This thing is completely empty. And oh my God, that looks terrible inside. And interestingly enough, there is no leak at the slave. And it doesn't appear to have a leak anywhere along the hard lines. So I'm gonna follow the same process as I did on the brake master cylinder. I'm gonna go ahead and take out the clutch master cylinder, clean out the reservoir, put it back together, and then bleed it, and we'll go from there. Taking out this clutch master cylinder reveals our problem. You can see it was leaking from the inside. This sucks because the carpet is soaked of brake fluid. So that part goes in the trash. We're gonna get a new one. I'll be back. And I'm back, and I got the new part right here. Unfortunately, they do not have the Aisin brand, the one that's made in Japan, the one that comes OE with these cars. So I have to go with this one. This will do. Here's the part number right here. And it doesn't look like it's a reman, it looks like a completely new casting. So here's a comparison between the two parts. They look very similar. You can see this is the OE one. And now I'm gonna go ahead and adjust this push rod to be equal lengths from the old one. And then I'm gonna go ahead and install it. All right, after all that work, the clutch feels great. Let's see if the RPM still hangs after pushing the gas pedal. That's a whole lot better. And now let's see, don't mind the duct tape steering wheel, but now I'm gonna hold down the clutch. Yep, it works a lot better. Before it would grind when I go to reverse, and now it's a lot better. It's still not the smoothest because, granted, this part right here is very worn out, but it's working a lot better than it did before. Well, it's pretty dark outside. I found that issue the guy was talking about. So the brakes, I actually took this for a test drive, and the brakes locked up on me. So I put the jack under the car, lifted up the rear tires, and both of them were locked up. I put them down, lifted up the front, and the fronts were locked up too. Since all the wheels were locking up, I suspected that the push rod in between the brake booster and the master cylinder is set too long, which is causing a preload on the master cylinder. So the way I checked it is to loosen these bolts. And after I loosened it, the car rolls back smoothly. So since it's dark, I'm not gonna finish it today. I'm gonna pick another day, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I have this new tool right here that will tell me how much I need to adjust the push rod. So my assumption was correct. The push rod on the brake booster is actually too long. And the way to check it is that you can see it says master cylinder side, brake booster side. So first you want to put this in the master cylinder. Basically, you're going to push the rod into the master cylinder till it stops. Then you're going to tighten the screw and put it on the brake booster. And as you can see, the push rod is slightly just too long where it's putting a preload on the master cylinder. I'm going to go ahead and adjust this push rod in by turning this bolt right here and holding the other end with some pliers and get it short enough where there'd be no preload on the master cylinder. Now, as you can see, this tool is sitting flat with the brake booster, and there is just a slight space between the push rod and the tool, so that means we're in the clear. And after all that, all these pedals work completely normal, as it should. So I already took this for a test drive, and everything is working completely fine. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. In the next video, I'm gonna be installing my catalytic converters and making a whole custom exhaust for this thing. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.